To be a leader, but for the right reasons. A text from the Greek philosopher Plutarch recently came into my hands. Here he makes some reflections on what we would call leadership in the modern world. As we approach electoral times in many parts of the world, when a lot of people pretend to be leaders just to get your vote, I think it's worth remembering these lessons written almost 2000 years ago. Plutarch observed that there are always many people willing to be leaders. However, the reasons behind those leaderships can be as varied as the people themselves. Some will do it purely by obligation, others will do it for fame or for opportunities to enrich themselves. Some others will really do it to serve and to try to improve their city or their country. It is very important to know the real motivations behind a leader and to learn to differentiate those leaders who are genuine from those who are not. Plutarch lived in the first century of our era and was characterized as a moralistic philosopher. He became the greatest of Apollo's priests, and due to his reputation, he obtained the responsibility of interpreting the omens of the Oracle of Delphi. Plutarch placed great emphasis on choosing leaders who were not only capable, but were also motivated by the right reasons. For Plutarch, the reasons that should always guide the performance of a leader are duty and honor. Plutarch gives the example of Cato the Elder, who after a life of public service, and despite people asking him to do so, he decided not to build a statue in his honor. When questioned about the reason for this decision, Cato mentioned that he preferred that people wonder why there was no statue in his honor rather than why there was one. Plutarch mentions that the pursuit of fame and glory are a recipe for disaster, both at the private and the public levels, but is especially bad when it's done by a public servant, since politicians who are motivated by fame and glory usually make terrible decisions in their quest to get to those objectives. Plutarch also mentions that the leader must have impeccable character for a simple reason. The life of anyone who is in a leadership position will sooner or later end up being scrutinized and criticized. Therefore, the leader must be safe from scandal by leading an exemplary life. Without an exemplary life, the negative aspects eventually become known and end up eroding the leadership. Later in the text, a very interesting philosophical question is posed. The leader, by definition, is dedicated to guiding others. But then, who should guide the leader? Where can the leader find the light that will lead him to act in the best possible way? Plutarch defines wisdom and reason as the two main sources of inspiration for the leader and mentions that wisdom and reason are alive within each person. Each person is responsible for taking the necessary actions to grow these two qualities, but also identifies an original source of them, God. And he invites us to think that just as a God without wisdom and without reason would not be able to maintain the perfect order of the universe, neither could a leader without wisdom and without reason could maintain the perfect order necessary to help his community, his organization, or his country. I think it would be very interesting to test how many of our leaders today, both in the public and private sectors, would successfully comply with the standards set by Plutarch almost 20 centuries ago. I'd imagine that the Greeks, just like us today, realized that true democracy is only viable when the right leadership exists, when the people have the necessary tools to objectively evaluate the rulers, and when the leaders submit their decisions to the empire of wisdom and reason. Perhaps Plutarch's approach is deeply idealistic, but there is no doubt that the construction of a better world passes through the development of better leaders in every field. This should be one of the most important priorities of our time.